Fridays are already excited in the NHL, but it is the Metro Division Playoff Breakdown. On today's episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast that you are tuned and tapped into, are the Rangers going to roll through the Caps? Are the Canes going to do the same with the Isles? We're breaking it all down for you on today's episode.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, everybody. We got the vibes. We got those playoff feelings, and it's not stopping on the Friday episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. I'm joined, as always, by my esteemed co-host, Mr. Steele wrote in on this side of the microphone. It's your boy, Big Flip Livingstone. Shout out to the everydayers holding us down, making us your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. We admit it, we have a couple of competitive sides, and both of them are a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on the classic Monopoly. Join your friends and download Monopoly Go today for free in the App Store or Google Play. Steele and I are getting very, very serious on the next few episodes of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. If you missed Thursday's episode, we broke down all of the Atlantic Division matchups. Today, Friday's episode, we're doing the Metro, and we're headed out west for Saturday and Sunday specials. And that's right, people. We are here for you all playoffs long. We're doing X Factors, series breakdowns, who wins and how many games, and some of our favorite best bets of the first round. Steele, I say this all the time, but right over to you, my friend. I actually forget what series we're going to start in. That's just because of how excited I am. You and I have been doing a lot of content of late. That's because this is the time of year that warrants it. So who are you looking at? What series first? We got X Factors, we got bets, and we got predictions, baby. Hit me with what you're thinking and what you're seeing.
Well, let's go with my favorite team besides the Maple Leafs going into the postseason, and it's the New York Rangers and Washington Capitals in the first round of the playoffs. I mean, what an absolute heartbreaker, first of all, for the Detroit Red Wings and the Philadelphia Flyers, Pittsburgh Penguins. I mean, they fought back. They scored that game-tying goal in the last 3 seconds, win it in a shootout or overtime, and then, I mean, the Flyers at that point were out of it, and they pulled their goal. I mean, just a tragic ending to the season for the Detroit Red Wings, but prosper for the Washington Capitals. That's the first round series. Rangers versus the Capitals, and just again, during the regular season, they split the season series 2-2. They were even in goals for and goals against at 9 apiece on each side in those 4 games. And I'll start off with my X factor for the Washington Capitals first.
Hit me.
My X factor for these Capitals heading into the first round, it's got to be the goaltending. Just like you said in yesterday's episode in the Atlantic Division for the Toronto Maple Leafs, has to be the goaltending. I believe Charlie Lindgren's going to get the nod in game 1. He's played the most games this season for them. He's been the better goaltender. Whether it's Charlie Lindgren or Darcy Kemper, they have to be a brick wall, a stone wall fortress moving forward in this first round. Lindgren has had a very good season. He's 25, 16, and 7 with a 9-11 save percentage. But like I said, they have to be a stone force, a stone wall in this first round series against the Rangers, because Washington is one of 2 playoff teams with a negative goal differential, minus 37 to be exact to end the season. It's an ugly number to be. It's an ugly number. 28th in goals for, 18th in goals against, and there's the 17th best on the power play and 18th best on the PK. It's not going to do that great for them in the first round, so it has to be a lot of the pressure has to be on the goaltending.
A lot of people coming into this matchup, Steele, this is like one of the angles that have been covered in podcasts in the NHL realm. How are the Washington Capitals doing this? And I can't remember many seasons where, and you and I just the past couple of years, but we had our finger on this Washington Capitals team to do just this. Kind of underachieve. There wasn't a ton to like about this roster. How are they going to get wins? How have they punched their ticket? 40, 31, and 11, 91 points this year. Number 1, Spencer Carberry, as a new head coach or newer head coach, deserves a whole lot of credit of getting the talent and the value out of his roster that he has. Yeah. That's number 1. And I think it has to be Charlie Lindgren. very quiet in terms of number one game one starters. Very quietly, Charlie Lindgren has a 2.67 goals against and 6 shutouts to tie the lead for the NHL in shutouts this season. I think I've been very critical on Charlie Lindgren myself, and I need to apologize because he has really put up a very impressive performance. And when you're talking about how the Alex Ovechkins, which is basically what this team is, he's the heartbeat, Steele. And I thought you were going to say Alex Ovechkin, but my X factor is also Charlie Lindgren, because when you're going up against a team like the New York Rangers, who, when you look at them, you got Panarin. You also have Zibanejad. Obviously, you have some intriguing young pieces. You have Vinny Trocheck, who I'm going to talk about in a sec. They can bring it offensively. So the goaltender is going to have to respond when Washington has only scored a few more goals than the Anaheim Ducks and Seattle Kraken this year. You mentioned it, 28th. So I'm concerned about that. My X factor for them has to be Charlie Lindgren. And let me just spit this out to you, and I'll throw it right back to you. Vincent Trocheck is probably, and you know I like to say this about underrated players.
Yes.
He's the most underrated fantasy piece in the NHL. And maybe not fantasy, because you know what? Let me retract that, because fantasy GMs know about him. But in terms of what he brings to his team and getting it done on the ice and winning games, his Corsi numbers, game-winning goals, 77 points this year. He is a beast in the face-off dot. He is going to be the X factor for this New York Rangers team. I don't think all the way through, but I'm going to say to set the tone early and really take it to the Washington Capitals in the first round.
Second most underrated fantasy player out there, right behind Joel Eriksson-Ek. I just had to throw that out there, but he's very close, close. They're very similar players. That's a great X factor going into this first round.
Appreciate that.
And I appreciate that because alongside this guy as well. And I'm going with Chris Kreider as my X factor in this series.
I like
Second best season in his career with 75 points. And for a guy who was a perennial 20 goal scorer for the 9 years of his career, he's really improved on his scoring touch. 52 goals, 36 goals, and 39 goals in the last 3 seasons. We did know after that 50-plus goal season that he was going to regress a little bit, but to go back-to-back 35-plus goal seasons is no slouch in itself. So
yes, sir.
I love the goal-scoring touch from Chris Kreider this year and the past few years. And it appears to be that the scoring touch actually gets even better in the postseason. Just go look at the numbers in the playoffs. Huge. He had a 40% shooting percentage last year. I know he only played 1 round in 7 games against the Devils, but still very high shooting percentage. And they've actually been very higher every single year in the postseason than in the regular season. So really love that it continues. It doesn't just stop in the regular season. It continues going into the playoffs. 40 goals, 64 points in 104 playoff games for Chris Kreider. He's got the scoring touch. He's going to be a huge X factor in this first game series. And I guess I'll just get right to my prediction.
Do it.
I'm going the New York Rangers in 4. They're sweeping this series. Sweeping the series. I know this. Hold on,
let me dust off my notes here, Steele. Okay, continue.
I know the regular season series between these two clubs was split 2 apiece, but there's just no comparison. The Washington Capitals have, even to me, they've overachieved just to get into the postseason. They just got in on the last game of the regular season. Rangers are going to win in 4 for me. They've got they've got a top 3 power play. They have a top 3 penalty kill. They've got some of the most dangerous players in the world, one of the best goaltenders in the world, and their blue line is legit. Even though it may not look like it on paper, they are legit. They are legit in person and in game action. They're 6th in goals for, 8th in goals against. That's all I got to say. Rangers in 4.
Igor Shesterkin has turned it on in the second half of this NHL season. In the second half, I know he's rocking a save percentage north of 920. He's got 4 shutties. He's got an amazing record. And I don't even need to talk about him in terms of comparing him to Charlie Lindgren, Darcy Kemper, whoever they want to throw in that net. The Washington Capitals are lucky to be here. The New York Rangers have been building towards this moment now, and Chris Drury, Peter Laviolette, they are doing everything right, from the front office to behind the bench to on the ice. This is no disrespect. Again, this is not what we come on here to do. We're not trying to slag fan bases. We're not trying to throw improper shade, although some podcasts do that. We're trying to highlight the angles that matter the most. And when you just brought it up, third best power play, third best penalty kill, and you're going up against the 18th best penalty kill and 17th best power play. This one's not going to be close. I'm going to give Ovi one sensational performance along with a Lindgren standing on his head performance. Rangers in 5. Let's talk about every other angle for this other Metro Division matchup. Hurricanes, Islanders, our best bets for both series. We're going to break it all down right after the break. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Policy Genius. Have you ever gotten positive feedback from your audience about using Policy Genius? You know you have, because Policy Genius is convenient and time-saving. Make sure you're checking it out today. It helps you compare options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts is hands-on to help you walk through it. Talk to a team of award-winning agents who will walk you through the process step by step. Easily compare quotes from America's top insurers in just a few clicks. Make sure you check life insurance off your to-do list with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/LockedOnNHL or click the link in the description and get your free life insurance quotes and see exactly how much you can save. We're loving Policy Genius, so make sure you head over to policygenius.com/LockedOnNHL today.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Are you still watching on Fox Sports or ESPN? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting. Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day, bringing you the biggest and top stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channel app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Continue to hit the subscribe, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and support you show us Monday through Friday. Let's get over to the last matchup, last playoff series in this Metropolitan Division, last playoff series that we're going to talk about in the Eastern Conference.
Yes,
the Carolina Hurricanes taking on the New York Islanders. Flip, I'll throw it over to you.
Okay, here's the thing. The New York Islanders, this is a funny one for me, Steele, because I think you have been very on point with talking about this New York Islanders team as one that should most definitely be in the playoffs. Can we put our finger on what they're going to do after that? It's kind of difficult when they don't have that offensive depth to go toe-to-toe with the likes of the best in the business, but especially when you look at what the Carolina Hurricanes did at the deadline, bringing in Jake Gensel, just alone the Jake Gensel move, you and I really liked. So I guess what I'm trying to get at here is this is definitely going to be one of those series that I have a hard time putting a finger on. Those other ones, I kind of immediately had a lean. I knew the team, and then after a little bit of research, I had the number in mind. I'm going to spit this out for you very quickly. Bo Horvat needs to be huge for the New York Islanders. When I look at his numbers this year, 33 goals, 35 assists, 68 points, that's kind of like maybe at the lower end, but right in the realm of what I expect from Bo Horvat. I think he can be a whole lot better, and I think he can be a big difference maker for this team, and I think we know the book is out on the Islanders. They have a goaltender who can steal a series, even though he struggled. Their blue line, anchored by Noah Dobson and other really balanced pieces, has all the makings of going on a run. Can they go up against a team? Sebastian Aho, Seth Jarvis, and Jake Gensel right now, that line, no one has an answer for. So my X factor right off the top is Bo Horvat. And I think it could go very neatly along with Steele for the New York Islanders. Anybody else who is going to step up offensively, because I think I'm not worried about the blue line. And even though Sorokin has had his struggles, I'm not worried about him either. I'm worried about the secondary scoring and the depth of offensive talent that these New York Islanders have.
I'm right there with you, buddy.
Giddy up.
I am right there with you with Bo Horvat as the X factor for this New York Islanders team. Fourth consecutive season with 30-plus goals for Bo Horvat. And I'm there with you as well. I think this is exactly where I would put him. You know, he finished the season with 68 points.
Yeah.
This is the lower end of where I thought he would be. I think he could definitely show us a little bit more, but fourth consecutive season with 30 plus goals. Absolutely love to see that.
Yep.
Again, this was, going back to when he was traded to the New York Islanders last year. Matt Barzal got injured. They didn't have enough time to form the chemistry. They look great this year. I love the play with Bo Horvat, Matt Barzal on the top line. Brock Nelson continuing to do his thing at 33 years old. Just looking at Barzal as well, is the second best season of his career with 80 points in 80 games. But Bo Horvat is going to be my X factor for the New York Islanders moving forward. There's a lot of guys who I think could be the X factor. Noah Dobson, like you said, Elias O'Rourke, who's had a tough season. But
and that speaks to the style that the Islanders play, right? They are very much team first. There is no pure number one superstar. Patrick Waugh has this team cooking. I'm intrigued to hear what you think about like the overall output of this series, but I'm with you so far 100%. But the Islanders special team Steele, really bad. They have the 19th best power play and the worst penalty kill in the NHL. And then you look over at the Carolina Hurricanes, who have the second best power play, this one might actually get out of hand in a hurry if Sorokin isn't ready to stand on his head.
Yeah, the special teams on the Islanders side of things has definitely been a problem for them for the last couple of years. Again, going back to last year, they had the worst power play in the National Hockey League. So it's going to be a problem going up against this special team juggernaut in the Carolina Hurricanes, who can play and can be dangerous shorthanded, dangerous obviously on the power play, second best in the league. So it's going to be a tough ask for this Islanders team going up against the Carolina Hurricanes. I think they definitely have a good chance to maybe take the series in an upset. Before I get to that, I'm going to talk about my X factor from the Carolina Hurricanes. I've got two players. Number one, obviously, was the newly acquired Jake Guentzel at the trade deadline. And I got to mention this because Jake Guentzel has the most points in NHL history for any player traded at the deadline through the rest of the regular season.
Whoa.
At the time, he had 22 points in 15, but I believe he finished with 25 in 17 or 18, something like that. Okay. Absolutely stellar trade from the Carolina Hurricanes point of view. Got to throw Jake Guentzel in there as an X factor for sure. For me, other than that, I'm actually going with Brady Shea on the blue line. He's had a career best 47 points.
This is
sneaky player this season. Brady Shea, best season of his career with 47 points this year. I don't have the other stats up right now, but the best season by far of his career. He was really great last season as well in the postseason before he got absolutely dummied by Sam Bennett when he had to leave the game, taking that hit from behind the net. I got to go with those two players from the Hurricanes, Jake Guentzel and Brady Shea, one forward, one defenseman. And then we know Freddie Anderson, hopefully he's at his best and he's doing his thing, but they've got Kochetkov back there as well.
Would it shock you to hear me say, Steele, that my X factor from this Carolina Hurricanes team is a man named Seth Jarvis? And you, of all people, yeah, I know, it's a shocker. You, of all people, though, are the victim of hearing me spout off at the mouth about the same player sometimes a little bit too often. And I have not been correct on all of them, obviously. Seth Jarvis has 33 goals this year. He is also 21 years old, Steele. This is a player that I said 2 years ago you need to pay attention after he put up 40 and 68. And now, most definitely, you have to. And when it comes down to X factors, I already alluded to, as you know I would, the special teams. But I just brought it up. The Carolina Hurricanes have the second best power play in the NHL. And the penalty kill on the Islanders is dead last. And then you look at Seth Jarvis and someone for an X factor. He has 20 of his 67 points, including 13 goals on the man advantage this season. So I have a bold prediction in terms of the end of this series. I think it's a bit bold anyway. But in terms of X, and I'll give that after the break along with our best bets for each series. Of course, over the weekend, Western breakdowns. But let me just leave it at this. Seth Jarvis has a big opportunity here, Steele, to be an X factor. And I think it's going to have to be the special teams here, because let's not forget, the New York Islanders have actually got a ton of good mojo rolling right now and have been playing some pretty good hockey. So why don't you take us to break, and then I'll hit you with my prediction right after that.
We'll come back after the break with our prediction for this matchup between the Canes and the Isles and finish off with the best bets between these two matchups we talked about in the Metropolitan. Of course, over the weekend, we're going to be talking about the playoff matchups in the Western Conference. But first, this episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. We've all been there either as a player or a fan. It's halftime in the scoreboard. It's not looking good. You're feeling low, not sure you or your team can pull out a win. That's when you dig deep, lift your head, and say to yourself, time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heist, and take as much of my friend's money as I possibly can. That's right. The smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone, anytime, with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. There's so much to do. Play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards. Make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with Wrecking Ball. Charge other players rent for your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put your game face on, and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play.
I got you. Bang.
Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all the love and support you show us Monday through Friday. We're going to get over to the best bets in this Metropolitan Division playoff series between the Canes and Isles, Rangers and Capitals. But first, playoff prediction from this matchup we just finished talking about. Who do you got and in how many games? Over to you, my friend.
Right.
Over to you.
Okay. I wanted to immediately say, with the confidence that you had with the Rangers for a sweep, I was kind of looking at this as a sweep potential because of all the good things going for the Hurricanes. Freddie Anderson comes back from a very serious health issue. They also have the comfort blanket of Kochetkov, who has obviously had his ups and downs, but is very capable of being a number one goaltender. Is he ready yet? Anyway, that's a huge thing. The blue line is one of the best in the business. They allow the least shots against per game at under 26 per night for this defensive crew. They bring in Jake Gensel at the deadline. Who was the other piece, Steele? I know they brought in someone else peripheral. Help me out here. Kuznetsov as well. So these, as much as Kuznetsov, you don't have to get overly excited about. You bring in a veteran who has winning caliber, and I know it's only one ring. These are all really good vibes working for the Hurricanes. So I wanted to just come out here and say Canes in 4, but the Islanders are a pesky team. They're run by Patrick Waugh. They have confidence for days. Patrick Waugh and Rod Brindamore, this has the potential of a head-to-head coach battle that they really also know each other quite well from their time in the NHL. This one might be closer than we think. I'm going to spit it out. Hurricanes in 6. I wanted to say Canes in 4. Then I wanted to say Canes in 5. But if I had to go with my gut, Steele, it's the Islanders get 1 or 2 on Sorokin's nastiness and maybe a big performance up front by Barzal. Canes in 6. That's my prediction.
It's the one series where we don't see eye to eye right now.
Oh,
I've been saying it all season long. They're a pesky team.
No, you do not.
They're an underrated team. Look, everything points to the Hurricanes winning this series. You look at the 2 other matchups they've had. This is the 3rd time the Hurricanes and Islanders are meeting in the postseason. You look at the 2 last matchups.
Okay.
2019, the Islanders got swept 4-0. 2023 last year, they lost 4-2. Everything points to the Hurricanes winning. Just saying this, I'm throwing it out there. It doesn't really mean much, but the Islanders took the regular season series 2-1-1. Doesn't really mean much. This is playoff. It doesn't really mean too much when you look at the numbers.
Spit it out, Steele. What's your prediction?
Islanders in 7.
Wow.
Islanders in 7. And here's where I'm coming from with this. Because I've been on the Islanders all season long. I got to back them up. And I think they could be a team. This could be a team that just kind of, upsets a lot of matchups in the postseason. I think that's what it's going to be. I think it's going to be a complete upset. I think it's going to be a complete heartbreak for Carolina in Game 7. I'm going Islanders in 7. This is a team that can sneak out a W in the first round. And I'm going with the Islanders in 7.
Okay. Look, I just want to give you kudos for having the cojones to come on here and say that, because this Carolina Hurricanes team is very much for real.
Oh, they are legit. They are scary. They're dangerous, but I'm still going with the Islanders as a team, again, that can just they can play bad in the first round, but still somehow get the victory in the end.
I want to talk to you more about this off air. We might need some side bets. Let me just throw out my two favorite best bets for both of these series. So if you're okay with it, number one, you're not going to like this. I like Hurricanes in 6 games, like I said, at plus 370. But perhaps my favorite pick of this entire series is Seth Jarvis 2+ goals. You're getting plus 145. If that power play gets the opportunities that we think it will, Seth Jarvis 2 goals, clicking with Gensel, looking like they've been playing together for a very, very long time. Those are my two favorite bets from that series. And I'll just throw out my last one from the Rangers series. You said a Rangers sweep. That's juicy if you predict that. Rangers to take 4 straight plus 520. I'm really liking my prediction of Rangers in 5. So the Rangers win 4-1 at plus 290. That would be my favorite bet from that one, Steele. But I think we can agree on this. No matter what happens out of the East, I am going to give the edge, unless it's literally the New York Rangers, I'm going to give the edge to the Western Conference teams, whether it's the Golden Knights, whether it's the, we're not looking at them too much yet, the Dallas Stars, you know me. If it's going to be even the Edmonton Oilers, we're teeing up the West right now. We're going to talk about that tomorrow and over the weekend. I'm going to say this, unless it's the New York Rangers, I'm going to immediately give the edge to whatever Western Conference team is in it. In terms of the Stanley Cup, we're getting ahead of ourselves here. But why don't you wrap up and hit me with your take on that?
Yeah, I don't know if I would be giving the edge to the Western Conference, and I know
okay.
you've been pretty big on the Dallas Stars. I've been big on the New York Rangers. I believe that's what we have clashing in the Stanley Cup Finals, maybe.
Big time side bet.
Big time side bet. But I like more of the teams coming out of the Eastern Conference than I do from the Western Conference. So I'm going with that. Speaking of best bets, though, I'm going with Chris Kreider, 3+ goals in the series against the Capitals at plus 120. Yeah. And then I'm also taking the Rangers 4-0 sweep at plus 520, I believe you said.
Juicy. Yeah, plus 520.
So I'm taking both those from the Rangers. And then you go over to the Islanders Canes series. I'm going to look at some player props for Noah Dobson. I don't know exactly what's out there right now, but I'm going to feel Noah Dobson having, again, breakout season for him in the regular season. I think he's going to continue that into the first round against the Carolina Hurricanes.
Right now, the markets are fluctuating, and because it is going to be Saturday, and we're talking right now on Thursday, Friday, ahead of it, make sure you jump out there and get the best lines. Tap into FanDuel, obviously. Noah Dobson, I think, is going to have to play a key part if your prediction of the New York Islanders making an upset here. Steele, the end of the day, man, holy, we made it through another whole season. Shout out to everybody holding us down. Shout out to everybody on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, literally all the way down to the fams supporting us. We've got beautiful, amazing, talented women behind both of us supporting us, maybe in front of us, actually, at most times, Steele, not to say they're behind us. But you get me. This is a point where I just want to show some love to everybody for the season. We got Western Conference breakdowns coming up. And, of course, Steele and I will be here all postseason long, all the way up until they lift Lord Stanley, breaking down everything you need to know. And we ain't even talking about next year's fantasy draft yet, are we, Steele?
We're not, but hey, a lot of the postseason, we can look at some of these young guys and see what their value holds heading into
Wyatt
next
Johnston.
Hashtag Wyatt Johnston. Hashtag Seth Jarvis for your boy out there. Thank you for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Once again, go check out Locked On Sports Today, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. They are here for you, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows covering every single league. So you can find them on YouTube. You can also find them on the free Amazon Fire TV channel app. Make sure you go check it out on both websites. Thank you again so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day out there. Good luck with all your bets, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.